What's up, everyone? My name's Adam McDormand, and this is Medium Quality. I hope you're excited because I have the most recent album from the kings, pun intended, of modern psych rock, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard's Flying Microtonal Banana. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard has a very long history of experimentation, both musically and conceptually. So I really wasn't at all surprised to hear that they were going to put out an album recorded almost exclusively using microtonal instruments. Basically what that means, and this is a vast oversimplification of some music theory, most Western music is recorded using 12 tones and semitones that we call notes. And microtones are essentially the notes in between those notes. Knowing how much of a hardworking band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is, I also wasn't surprised to know that they were going to put out an album so soon after last year's Nonagon Infinity, which was one of my very favorite albums of 2016. I mean, these guys have put out like 9 albums in the past 5 years. The thing that did surprise me, however, was the fact that they announced that Flying Microtonal Banana would be the first of 5 albums that they were going to release this year. That is a massive undertaking for any band to record upwards of 5 hours of new music while keeping the sound fresh and not padding those albums out with fillers and hoping that your fan base has the stamina to stay interested in 5 albums in such a short period of time. It remains to be seen whether or not they'll actually put out 5 albums this year. I have my doubts, but if there's anybody that can do it, it would be King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And so we have Microtonal Flying Banana, And so we have Flying Microtonal Banana. Yeah! This particular pressing of the album is the pre-order edition released through Flightless and their distributor ATO Records. This is the radioactive yellow vinyl press, which is really interesting looking. But how does this album sound? Are the songs any good? On my first listen through of the album, I had a very difficult time getting through all the songs. I mean, it really took me several listens to even get past the first half of the album. So let's break this down track by track. The album starts off with a song called Rattlesnake, and I think this is a fantastic opening track. And its defining feature in my mind is this driving motoric bass and drums groove that really hints at the band's krautrock ancestry. But then at the 4.5 minute mark, there's the introduction of this screeching zurna, which is essentially a Turkish horn that comes soaring in over what is otherwise a very classic King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard sound. And at that point, it becomes very apparent that this album is a pretty substantial departure from what the band has been doing previously. After that, the second track, Melting, is a welcome step down in musical intensity. The song has a more relaxed swing to it, but it actually introduces more of the microtonal elements in the chorus with these really strange and kind of unsettling synth leads that are doubled by guitar. Quite a bit of this song is working in unfamiliar melodic spaces, not just for the band, but also for most listeners. The next 2 tracks, Open Water and Sleep Drifter, feature more krautrock-esque jams, but again, they make very heavy use of the microtonal elements. And those tend to sound dissonant to anyone who's really only familiar with the Western music tradition. That makes those songs a very effective precursor to the 5th track in the album, Billabong Valley. This is by far the most abnormal track on the album thus far. It almost sounds like the theme song for a B-movie about a pirate that gets killed and ripped to pieces. It's weird and unsettling, and that's kind of the halfway point of Flying Microtonal Banana. And most often that it ended up being where I would turn it off and go listen to something else. And these songs were essentially an impenetrable wall that prevented me from getting any further into the album. they all sounded like they were full of wrong notes. And that's the challenge that Flying Microtonal Banana presents to the listener. It's dissonant and it's frantic and it has this world music influence, but that's intentional. If you stick with the album long enough to wrap your head around what the band's trying to do, the songs start to sound less unsettling and maybe a little more exotic. And that's essentially what happened to me. I listened to the album a few more times. I actually even went to see King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard in concert nearby. And that's when it started to make sense. That's when these songs, the intentionality of these microtonal sounds started to work in those songs' favor. And I got a chance to actually appreciate it. And that's when I broke into the last half of the album, which has some really good songs on it. The next 3 tracks on the album, Anoxia, Doom City, and Nuclear Fusion. These 3 songs form what I refer to as an apocalyptic trilogy. And I think these songs actually make the best use of the microtonal elements of any of the songs on the album. And because of the fact that they make the best use of those new sounds, the songs don't make the same impact on the first listen. However, for me, they've grown on me and they've become some of my favorite songs on the album. And that brings us to the final track, the title track of the album, Flying Microtonal Banana. This song abandons any semblance of rock and roll tradition in favor of a full-on world music sound. This song definitely lacks the intensity of other tracks on this album, but I don't actually think that that's a bad thing. I do think that this song would have been best served by being smack dab in the middle of the album. Because it's a more subdued song, it would have made a very welcome break in what is otherwise a punishingly fast-paced album. As I mentioned before, this is a very challenging album, even for fans of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. This album is not for everyone. I have pretty eclectic taste in music, and I had a very difficult time getting into this album the first several times that I listened to it. But I stuck with it, and I discovered some really interesting musical ideas that just wouldn't have worked within the 12-note scale that I'm used to. If any of that has you curious, I highly recommend that you go out and pick up a copy of Flying Microtonal Banana by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to check out this vinyl record review. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more vinyl record reviews, please subscribe because I will be putting out more of these as quickly as I can over the next few weeks. And until then, what a time to be alive.